Hello and welcome to today's session. Sorry for being late. I had a little problem with the camera. Still have. It's not looking very well, but it seems to work. So, just need to clean it a bit. Yeah, that must work. Okay, hello, and welcome to today's session, live session. Hello, also when you watch the replay or listening to the podcast, it's episode 25. And today we are looking at the problem or the topic or the theme if stray dogs are really not trainable anymore or if this is just not true. So I really don't have an idea what's going on here today with the camera, but no matter. Not so important to see, to watch, more important to listen. My name is Raya, and I'm working with stray dogs and dogs from animal shelters for 15 years now. Dogs that have been abandoned or abused, and dogs that have gone feral. Stray dogs that no longer need people. So there are dogs that are easier to influence and dogs that need more time or space. There are also dogs that do not want to submit to human demands. If you have space to meet these dogs halfway and take their needs into account, you can build a very valuable bond with these dogs too. Many customers tell me that dog trainers are quick to say that a stray cannot be trained. And that's not true. Every dog can be trained and educated in some way, regardless of age and origin, but always considered individually, of course. Stray dogs, street dogs, and shelter dogs can be educated and trained. It is possible to build a peaceful and trusting relationship with these dogs, no matter what they have been through in the past. We will look at that, at what a stray dog is and how it can be educated or trained. So, stray is a very elastic term. Animal protection dog, street dog, pedigree dog, family or working dog, it can be everything. A stray dog is a dog that is wandering alone and cannot be identified. A street dog is more or less the same. All of them can end up in an animal shelter. But in the shelter, we also find dogs that had a family, who perhaps had a job like herding or hunting. For some dogs, we may know the history and the circumstances of why they ended up in the shelter. For other dogs, all of this is unknown or false information is provided. Some dogs in the shelter have been abandoned, others confiscated, and still others given up for good reason, because life cannot always be foreseen. People get sick or die, they lose their jobs, or their homes, or their partners, or are affected by violence. There are 1,000 good reasons why people want to give their animals a chance for a better life, and absolutely no one is entitled to condemn or judge that. Of course, there are also people who just want to get rid of the animal. Well, there they are now. All these dogs in the shelter. Big, small, fat, thin, old, young, pure breed, mixed breed. And is it still possible to educate or train these dogs? Yes, of course it is. In England, for example, there are projects where the police trains shelter dogs for specific tasks, provided they are suitable. Basically, we have to look at each dog individually. A dog that ends up in a shelter usually has to deal with the circumstances there, the loss of their family and home. This means that the dog may behave differently in the shelter than it might have done or would do in a family. It can grieve, suffer, and adapt to the circumstances or resist them. Now it is important to look at where the dog comes from and what is known about the dog. An older dog that has had a family is perhaps easier to manage than a young dog with little social contact with people. But that doesn't mean that the young dog is a lost cause. It just needs a little more work and maybe more experienced people. The next question is, why do I want a dog? And why do I want this dog? What role can the dog play in my life? How much experience do I have? How much time and money am I willing to invest? What are my circumstances? Is the dog I want even suitable for my life? Maybe you live in a flat share in the city center, in the fifth floor, and work 5 hours a day. Then the Romanian guard dog is out of the question. Now you have found the right dog for you with the help of the animal shelter and an association. Not much is known about the dog. It was picked up on the street. It is a mixed breed, medium-sized, young. At the shelter he behaved quite normal. He pulls a little on the leash and does not like some other males so much. Small problems that can be handled. Now your dog is developing. He starts to defend his food and growls at you. He growls when you want to touch him. Outside, he now really pulls on the leash. He doesn't like strangers or children. He chases cats and bicycles. Recall is impossible and free running is a danger to the environment. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Yes, that's some kind of a scenario. You start watching YouTube videos now. You buy books and online courses. And because none of that helps much, you look for a dog trainer. The dog trainer has great reviews, lots of stars, great pictures on Instagram, lots of followers, and great YouTube videos. Everything looks so simple. He leads every dog with his little finger on a loose leash. When you introduce yourself with your dog, it quickly becomes clear to you, this won't work with your dog. You're not going anywhere. It's best to give the dog back. You look for the next trainer. He recommends that you give your dog calming pills from the vet. The next trainer. Here they work with positive reinforcement, such as water bottle, nail bottle, throwing chain, and ignoring. By the way, ignoring is just as much violence as nail bottles. And if you now think I am exaggerating or just making it up, no. This is exactly how most of my customers feel. These are their stories where they come to me. Now there are people who give the dog back, and in some cases that's even a good idea. The person was not up to the task, and the circumstances were too complicated. That happens, and then we have to face reality. Despite all idealism and the deep desire to help, sometimes we have to accept that it doesn't work that way. But there are also those who bite down hard on the task, who don't want to give up. And they see that the dog won't get anywhere with classical conditioning training, who don't want to use unnecessary violence or disproportionate pressure, who see themselves as part of the problem and part of the solution, who are willing to invest time and money, who don't give up and keep looking until they find a dog trainer who understands their problem and can help them. Because they do exist. They are often people who have specialized, who have a lot of experience in a very specific area, who do further training, who deal with extreme cases, who go unconventionally ways, think outside the box and don't give a damn about that's just how it's done, because they look at each dog individually. People who deal with the latest scientific findings, who don't think in black and white, who are open to adventure and experimentation, who work with the dog and speak its language. And that doesn't mean that everyone else is doing a bad job. It doesn't mean that methods or techniques or disciplines are wrong, bad, or evil. If I ride a mountain bike, I go to someone who knows about mountain bikes. If I have a sailboat, I don't go to someone who is more familiar with motorboats. And sometimes you have to look for these people. Is your dog's past history important? No, because we are in the here and now. We don't always know what led to our dog's behavior. That's why it doesn't matter. If you know, that's fine too. But there is a little risk that we will then react to it, and that is not always helpful. Well, for example, the dog was tortured by children. This happens more often than you think. and now he doesn't like children, which is only logical. If you know this, it may happen that you become nervous when you see children. Your dog senses this and it confirms his belief that children are dangerous. So sometimes it's better not to know in order to stay calm and neutral. How can you help your dog now? First of all, a thorough assessment is needed. When does the dog react where and how? Then it is important to be able to assess the behavior correctly and to understand how the dog thinks. In the dog's brain, the cerebrum is also responsible for logical thinking, rational behavior, and learning. The limbic system is responsible for emotion, among other things. And the reptilian brain is responsible for fight, flight, freeze. The problem with the dog is that the cerebrum and the limbic system can block each other. If a dog is extremely focused, it no longer feels pain, for example. We know this from hunting or herding dogs. They are so in their element that everything else is blocked out. Or the emotions block logical thinking. In this case, a dog under extreme stress is no longer be able to listen or learn. If I now have a dog that has had bad experiences, it can happen that the smallest trigger causes a stress reaction. The dog reacts. In the worst case, the reptile brain now switches on and the dog runs on autopilot to ensure its survival. In this case, learning, understanding, or relaxing is no longer possible. What is a trigger? Triggers are unhealed pains. The dog was scared to death, had to fear for its life, or had to fight. It was mistreated or hunted. When these triggers recur, they often cause an overreaction. The dog reacts to old experiences that he does not want to repeat. Unfortunately, we often want to avoid or block triggers in training. This means that we want to fight a part that is essential for the system to survive. And that is actually impossible. In this way, triggers only control the dog's everyday life and behavior even more. They appear overpowering. We can learn to live with our dog's triggers, to accept and integrate them, to see them as signposts in training, and not as insurmountable obstacles. Objective observation is important here. When does my dog react? How and how do I react? What am I reacting to? I'm also important, not only my dog. Every time your dog is triggered by something, stress is released and the dog reacts. We should try to redirect the reaction, fight or flight. But this usually does not work with cookies or nail bottles, and it is a longer process. So if this chain has become established due to the dog's circumstances, I cannot interrupt it with classical conditioning. For whatever reason, the dog has learned a behavior that ensures its survival and it will automatically show this when it feels threatened. This can be the defense of resources, social context, or control behavior. If the dog feels threatened or harassed, it reacts extremely quickly. It switches to defense. And by then, it is actually already too late to intervene. A water bottle won't help then either. And your dog trainer simply has to know that. These little things. And it's not a problem if he or she does not know it. I don't know everything either. I cannot work with every dog. I cannot help everyone. That's normal. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. So, some shelter dogs have extreme stories, and they are very short-tempered. And yet, you can help them, support them, and train them. You just have to approach a little differently. For example, in the trust technique, you and your dog learn to recognize triggers and, over time, to stop reacting to them or to redirect the energy. With a lot of time and patience, with very small steps, you have to look at each individual case to see what is possible. How far can you go? Where do you have to stop or take a break? To do that, you have to know all the dog's language, including body language, intuition, and behavior very well. You have to work with the dog in cooperation. Then you will also succeed with the stray. By the way, barking and growling should not be stopped. They are important clues. They serve as communication and are just as much a part of your dog as wagging its tail. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have a question, or if you would like to share a story or a problem, you will find a Google form in the description of this episode where you can anonymously share your story or problem. I will then address your topic in a future episode and present and discuss it. Thank you very much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my articles. And I wish you and your dog a wonderful time and hope to see you next week.